For the Meat Poultry Podcast, I'm Ryan McCarthy, Digital Media Associate Editor. Agriculture research business DSM Animal Nutrition and Health wants to provide solutions for antimicrobial resistance and animal emissions for years to come. The group is focused on seeing improvements in sustainability throughout the supply chain, so we thought we would have someone on the podcast to unpack some of their initiatives. In this episode, Christie Chavis, Vice President of Animal Nutrition Specialties Business for the company, takes us through the changes that are starting to happen in animal agriculture, including in the meat industry. Chavis explains some of the measures many meat companies are making to reach sustainability goals set for 2050. She also discusses how DSM is playing a role in moving the conversation forward to help improve gut health of animals. At the end of the podcast, Chavis also touches on what the business is doing for the poultry industry. It's a conversation on how animal nutrition will be important going forward, even with so many developments in the meat business happening over the next generation. Well, Christie, first of all, tell us a little bit about what DSM Animal Nutrition and Health does and your role there at the group.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. DSM is actually one of the largest vitamin, feed additive, and premix manufacturers in the world. And in DSM Animal Nutrition, we develop and sell products to improve animal nutrition as part of premixes and other feed additives, really focusing in this area of nutrition and where it's intersecting with health. We are moving and evolving more towards sustainability as well, meaning how nutrition can play a major influence in animal health and productivity, and how that can contribute to a smaller environmental footprint in animal production. We're very focused on people, planet, and profit would be the 3 Ps that we tend to live by, and really ensure that we're creating brighter lives for all. In my particular role as Vice President of the Animal Nutrition Specialties business, I get the opportunity to work in this area specifically where nutrition and health intersect. So I lead the portfolio of our specialty feed additives, as well as a sustainability team that works with producers to measure the environmental footprint. So as with anything, metrics are key.
Okay. And what's your background and what's kind of drawn you to this sector of the animal agricultural industry where you're looking at animal nutrition?
Yeah, well, that's an interesting question. I've had a very serendipitous career journey, starting from a family farm in Indiana, and then crossing over at some point almost every sector of agriculture, either, from growing up on the farm to working in row crops to vegetable production, and now fully in animal nutrition. What I can tell you is that each aspect is evolving and more sophisticated with technology than it was when I was growing up. And I think doing those farm chores as a kid, where it's checking cows or putting up hay or any of those other character building experiences, somehow those emotional roots for agriculture grow pretty deep. So our family farm wasn't large enough or profitable enough to return. So that wasn't ever in the cards for me, but the love and, more importantly, the curiosity about technology and doing it better was there and what drove me. So I joined industry and embarked on a long career of either researching or commercializing science and technology for improving agricultural productivity. And now that has evolved to more linking that agriculture productivity with sustainability advancements. Right.
And I know now you guys are kind of, with DSM, you're focusing a lot on the lifetime performance of farm animals. Can you kind of, I know this is going to be a broad question, but what do you believe has to change so much with animal agriculture, and what parts of it do you feel like can stay the same? I know we're kind of in such a major shift right now with all of this.
Well, certainly there's many statistics about how important it is to produce more food from a smaller footprint. So that's certainly one of the underlying pressures. But I truly believe that the animal agriculture industry is under attack. We've we live in this world right now where there's a lot of extremism, and animal agriculture and views on that is no exception. And so it's really important that we ensure that we're focused on improving that lifetime performance of animals so that we can continue to produce food with a smaller footprint. And we've got tools that enable us to do more of that than we ever have. And more importantly, we have the metrics in place. And so we've been looking at how animals, producers have their software and understand very well what their profitability is. The opportunity that we have now coming forward is being able to combine that with the sustainability farm print of that production. And so what we've seen many examples of where you can reduce you can do two things. One is you can reduce your sustainability, your environmental farm print, at the same time improve lifetime performance, which has a positive impact on profitability as well. And so whether it's incorporating some technologies that allows a sow to be in a herd 1 or 2 or even 3 more gestations than what they normally would have been, or improving just the total quality of the meat that comes out, whether it's things like amino acids that if you incorporate PROACT, then you can reduce the amount of nitrogen that comes out in the manure, which impacts the content of that manure and the litter that the animals are exposed to. So it's less nitrogen and it improves the overall quality of that foot, which is quite valuable in some markets around the world.
So, and that's something that I really wanted to touch on with improving animals' lifetime performance. Are those some of the other, do you have any other examples of things where animals can have a longer gestation period or can have more of a lifetime performance that you could explain to our audience?
One of the technologies that we feature is High D. It's a highly digestible vitamin D, and when you feed that to sows, then it has proven to enable the sows to remain in the herd longer, having more gestations, but thinking about overall health as well. One of the tools that has been used has been antibiotics, and that's a tool that's either declining in use or no longer allowed in many areas. And so if an animal gets sick, one of the opportunities, what are the alternatives instead of antibiotics? And so we're seeing more and more technologies, products in this space, whether it's a probiotic, a prebiotic, or amino acids and enzymes that in combination can improve the health. And so this intersection between nutrition and health is getting stronger and stronger. So enabling that animal to remain more productive.
I know you guys have been focusing a lot on sustainability, and I was just curious what some of those sustainability issues can be solved quickly and which ones are kind of more of a long-term thing from your guys' perspective?
The first thing I would say is metrics are key. So understanding where you are today is certainly important when you're trying to figure out where you want to go. So those are the two things that you need to understand.
Sure.
And so we look at putting in place metrics, tying in these impact on reducing livestock emissions, the improving the lifetime performance with the traditional metrics that are used. And so one of the things that we think can be addressed now is reducing the livestock emissions. This is something that by small tweaks in the diet, whether it's an enzyme focused on protein digestibility or carbohydrates focused on that carbohydrate digestibility, you can influence the content of that manure. And nitrogen is a perfect example. It's one of the enzymes that we saw as a PROACT that increases the protein digested. It can improve poultry health through overall improving that utilization of nitrogen. Then you get less of it in the manure, and it reduces those emissions overall. What we have not seen yet, and I think it's evolving, is where what does that mean? So what's, ultimately, how does that matter? And now we're starting to be able to measure what the actual impact of those reduced livestock emissions are. So this is something that we're very excited about launching and being able to link that. And as there's development of carbon trading schemes and even potentially nitrogen trading schemes, this presents a lot of opportunity in the future.
We will be right back to the podcast after this short break. In the March edition of the Meat and Poultry magazine, don't miss out on the top processors of 2021 as we spotlight the meat and poultry companies that are standing out. Check out our detailed information on the industry in the March issue. Also, don't miss the Bacon Trends Technology Supplement alongside the March issue, where we examine all the makings of the bacon industry. There's all that and more in the latest edition of Meat Poultry Magazine. Yeah, and I was curious, being with nutrition and feed additive, I was curious what your group has found out in shaping the discussion when you guys bring up these solutions to companies and countries, and how they're kind of interacting with these changing policies and processes when you guys come up with these solutions to them.
Yeah, so we launched an initiative last year called We Make It Possible. And the purpose behind the We Make It Possible initiative was to really start the conversation in the industry, to lead a robust and really achievable transformation across the industry from end to end, because it's not just it's just not one place in the value chain that's going to be able to make a difference. This was really something that we wanted to do because, again, a focus and improvement on one side could lead to a negative impact on another. And so by opening up the discussion, being able to work with others in the chain, we can look at how we can strengthen this impact of environmental modeling across the chain. So we're working with customers now and being able to take their data and their information and work with them on not only their nutrition, but also tying that nutrition into the environmental farm print, and then work with others downstream in the chain or even backwards to where the crop inputs are coming in, give them a benchmark from which to work from and understand how they're doing relative to their environmental footprint.
And what's been their response to all that? What kind of interactions or thoughts have you gotten from them when they're able to do these types of things?
It's been incredibly important for maintaining freedom to operate for some of these customers. And so if you're being called out by some of your investors and making commitments around improving your sustainability goals, but don't have a clear way to do this, that can be quite challenging. And so the first step, again, is if you need to go someplace, you first need to start where you are, and then what direction you need to go from there. So metrics is super, super important in being able to measure. And we've been able to work with a number of customers and improve their ranking on environmental lists, number one, or be able to help them put together a robust plan in place for their investment community. So it also shows, one, the positives and everything that we're doing in the right way in producing animal protein production, but also a clear and achievable plan for producing that more sustainably.
Right. And for your guys' group, can you tell us a little bit about what's your range or which areas you guys are focusing on as far as which countries? Are you guys mainly Europe, United States? Are there any other places that you're looking to explore and get your goals out there to right now?
Yeah, so DSM is a global company, and with that being a premix provider on every continent, it gives us a lot of bandwidth to understand the challenges and the opportunities in animal protein production. And so we're piloting our environmental tools and looking at how not only improving lifetime performance of animals, but also reducing emissions and other aspects in each of the major animal producing continents today. And so I'm really, really proud of the work that's underway, because it isn't just a Western problem or an Eastern problem. It's really going to take all of us as we look at the population challenges. And so that also strengthens the algorithms and the calculations and the understanding that we have as we continue to work with customers and those metrics for farm printing.
Right. And I know you've talked a little bit about technology and how important that is. And I know a lot of the Western European countries and the Americas have a lot of the technology on hand. Do you guys work with how you try to get some of this stuff to other countries that you want to move into the global aspect of what you're trying to do, if that makes sense?
I'm not sure I understand your question,
okay.
Right?
Yeah, that's all right. What I'm just trying to get at is how you try to get the technology to other places in the developing world more than anything like that. How do you guys incorporate them into what you guys are trying to do?
Our path to working with producers is through our nutrition routes. So we, as the largest supplier of premixes and animal nutrition products, we work directly with those producers or with those nutrition companies. And so as we work with those and supply premixes around the world, that would be our opportunity to introduce other products like our enzymes or eubiotics, or special vitamin D, highly digestible vitamin D or high D product into the diets that can impact overall health. And so our research program that we have at DSM now is largely focused around gut health and how improvements in gut health and the gut microbiome can have an impact. And this is where if you can improve your relationship with your gut microbiome, then you have less of a need for an antibiotic, or you can find products that can be an alternative to antibiotics. And so this is where the core of our research is focused through these feed additives that would then be introduced to customers through the normal feed chain.
Right. Getting ahead of a lot of the other issues that we see a lot of times in the industry when it comes to having to put antibiotics through there. Yeah, that makes sense for sure. A couple more here, Christie. I wanted to talk a little bit about your impressions from all the industry levels of how we kind of make these changes in the next 30 years or so. I know a lot of people always try to go towards 2050 as the place that we're going to. So kind of tell me a little bit about your impressions of what you've seen and how receptive a lot of the industry is when you talk to them.
Well, the great news is that not a day goes by where you don't see an article or a headline around a corporate initiative or a sustainability target, or the flip side, an attack on animal agriculture. There's a lot of noise. It's super confusing, and it's really unclear, what's happening. And so for us, that seems to speak to the need, a call to action around creating a We Make It Possible initiative so we can start working and advocating in the industry. I think it's fair to say the animal agriculture industry has been slow to stand up and put facts into the conversation. And again, in a world where, we're in such extremism that it's really important to be sure to have balanced conversations. And so this is why we're emphasizing putting metrics in place, and that we have to work with the whole supply chain. And then collectively, we can achieve sustainability goals and improve the impact of animal production on the environment. But again, it'll take a coordinated effort. It starts with those metrics. But that's why we've been very clear about collaborating with our partners and customers to make this possible. Of our 6 sustainability platforms that underpin the We Make It Possible initiative directly, we want to support the industry's biggest challenges and the timelines, of course, set out by the UN Sustainable Development Goals and the Paris Agreement on climate change. I mean, ultimately, we would love to see modern farming be a contributor to solving climate change, as opposed to right now being considered one of the contributors making it worse. So I really believe if you look at some of the things that are going on with regenerative agriculture, that there are opportunities for modern farming to adopt technology and be one of the key tools to fight climate change.
Right. And I know you guys have mentioned this before, but could you, for our audience, could you talk about your 6 initiatives that you just briefly mentioned for our audience?
Yeah, no, I'm happy to do that. So when we look at the sustainability drivers that we think influence animal agriculture the most, comes down to the first one: improving the lifetime performance of farm animals. If you're familiar with American football, this would be creating the Tom Brady's of each of our animals in the animal protein production cycle. The second one would be improving the quality of food, so meat, milk, fish, eggs, while reducing food loss and waste. The third one we've touched on, and something that we can do immediately, is reducing the emissions from livestock. Fourth one would be making efficient use of natural resources. Making efficient use of natural resources, again, another great opportunity here for enzymes and how you can get more out of your commodities, especially commodities that are higher in price right now. So utilizing a protease or a carbohydrate as part of the diet. The fifth one would be reducing the reliance on marine resources. And the last one would be helping to tackle antimicrobial resistance. And so for us, this specifically means how can we create other products, feed additives, whether it's a probiotic, a prebiotic, a eubiotic, that can be an antibiotic alternative. So again, working on gut health to enable a stronger, more resilient animal.
Sounds good. You know, Christie, I had one other thing before we finished up. Being with the Meat and Poultry magazine, I know we've talked a lot about pork and we cover them quite a bit, but what do you guys kind of tie in when it comes to birds and poultry with a lot of what you guys are trying to work on too? Do you guys touch on that at all?
Absolutely. So most of our efforts and most of our pipeline today, Ryan, is focused in poultry. And you know, with poultry and swine being monogastrics, there's certainly a lot of overlap there between the two. But in particular, the reducing livestock emissions, the enzymes that can influence the content of the manure have an enormous impact there in poultry, and the litter quality, directly being able to show improvements in foot pad lesions, for example. And we've got some very exciting technologies in the pipeline that can be very effective in managing coccidiosis. And so again, looking at alternatives in feed additives that could replace where antibiotics have been a key tool in so these will be important for us to continue to advance. And there's so much research going on in the microbiome of the gut. I feel like this is just in its infancy, and us truly being able to understand how we can influence overall health and production by understanding the gut microbiome.
Well, Christie, just a last question kind of to wrap all this up. With all these ambitious goals for sustainability, how many of them do you feel like can be, achieved in the next generation or so? Is it something that's going to be achievable, do you think?
I don't think we have a choice, honestly. We need to be very aggressive in working towards this. And there's not only the protein production, the protein demands coming from the increased population, but organizations, producers, companies will have to have a license to operate, and being sustainable and improving your contributions to the environment, I think, will be critical. So I don't see this as a choice. I do think again, the industry is under attack, and it's important for us to be metrics based and put facts into the conversation. But there are tools and technologies available today, and we all can work together to improve that environmental footprint of animal protein production.
Sounds good. Well, Christie, thanks for taking our questions today. That was some really insightful things that we'll definitely have to think about, and I think our audience will enjoy. So we appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Make sure to check out the latest stories from the monthly print edition and online at meetpoultry.com. Also follow us on social media at Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram, all by searching at Meat Poultry. And if you like what you heard, please leave us a rating and a review. It really helps us. All right, that's it for this time, folks. Thanks for listening, and have a great day.